Greetings everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to start a series of videos about a particular game, a game that I really enjoyed. Been playing it for almost 30 years now, and it's a strategic game, meaning it's not about a single battle or a single event, but more about an entire war. And the game is A House Divided by Game Design Workshop, released in 1989. This is the version from 1989. There's a few other versions of this game. I also have one that came out in 1981, and they're still making it at a different company now that actually makes it. But the 81 version is pretty much similar to this one. The map is not as nice, but the counters are the same. The rules are pretty much the same. The new versions have added a few rules, but it's basically the same type of game. It's from point to point with very basic counters. And the new version, I think, also have cards, which is a bit more current now in games that have cards to drive the gameplay. So the game is obviously House Divided. It's based on a quote from one of Abraham Lincoln's speech that he made in 1858, if I recall. Where he says something like, let me try to remember. It's a house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free, something like that. I'm just kind of quoting from memory here, and it was part of a longer speech he had made in Illinois, where he came from. So the game is basically a strategic game of the Civil War, and you move your counters. Basically, there's brown; those are roads. You get the red lines here, which is supposed to be railroad, and the blue lines, which is by river, which is pretty much how most of the movement was being made during the Civil War. It has the basic location that are well known for this war. For example, you've got Island Number 10, Fort Henry and Donaldson. You got Vicksburg down here somewhere. The original battlefields up north, like Gettysburg, and Richmond, and all these other places, Fortress Monroe. So it's basic, and when you look at the the box, it says easy to learn, fun to play. To a certain extent, it is fun to play. Not very tricky or complicated to learn until you add a bit of the optional rule and the standard rules. Now, if you play with the basic rules, it's a game that you can probably play in, I would say, a couple of hours, 3 hours tops, especially if it's two players who really know the game. They're very familiar with it, they know the rules, so they don't have to think about it and just play. If you start adding some of the optional rules, it makes the game a bit more interesting. It adds a little bit of flavor and kind of balance things out a little bit. It gives a bit of advantage to the north in certain areas. It gives the south a little bit more of their own advantage. Then if you go with the advanced rules, you're really throwing a lot of things in there, which makes the game a little bit more, not necessarily more complicated, but a little longer, because there's a bit more to it than just the basic game. The way it works is like in the basic game, you just throw a dice, and it gives you the amount of movements that you're allowed to do for a turn, and then you can just decide where you're going to move your units from what position to what position, following the rules of the road. You can only move ones, railroad too, if you have cavalries and so on. If your units are veterans or cracks, so they can move a little faster, a little better. And obviously when you get into contact with an enemy, then there's a battle, there's a cycle that goes on, where you fire at each other, and if you retreat, then the defender can, the person not retreating can just have one more shot at you as you move away. You lose some units during battles, but if a unit has been depleted, so it just turned on the black side, and this white side here, and if you turn it around, you see it here, this is white, but if you turn it around, it's on the black side. Once the battle is over, you can just like flip it back to its full strength side and keep going with it. And every turn you are allowed to promote units, which gives you the chance to remove your militia unit and improve them to veteran units. And if you have some veteran unit, you can also upgrade them to crack units, which have bonus defensive on them. And then every turn you're allowed to do some drafting of new militia units. So the North usually has a bit more counters than the South, which represent the difference in main and strength of population from that time. The South had way less population than the North, so that's there's a balance there for that. But if you play with the some of the advanced rules, the chance of promotion for the South to get much better units are higher, and so that kind of balances out everything, where when the North have more militias, but obviously they cannot perform as well against the veteran and crack unit of the South. So it balances out pretty much on a good basis with the game. The objective obviously is to defeat the enemy, and you want to capture the boxes with the numbers here. So like red 1 here is for the South, red blue is blue for the Union, and you want to capture the capitals, Richmond or Washington, and you get a certain amount of point army size that you need to have, and if the South reach a certain point where they're just as equal or close to what the Union Army has, the South can declare a win, and if the North capture Richmond, that ends the battle as well. Some of the optional rules, there's the draft, for example, that the Union has, where every year you can add 4 more militia units, but you can also install the rules of the draft riot that occurred in the North, which makes where you're going to include, instead of including the 4 units all in one shot, they're spread out over 4 months. There are rules for the South where you can have the British or the French entering in the war, and which was always something that the South wanted to accomplish, because obviously they knew that it was going to be very difficult to defeat the North, because they did not have the same industrial capacity that the northern states had. So there's something that politically and historically was very true. The South really wanted to include the foreign intervention here in order to unbalance the North. There was also some units that are included for certain states like Missouri, Arkansas, and Kentucky, that can be added to the South if they control certain points here on the map, which can be added to the Confederacy pool for reinforcement. There are also rules where instead of 2 movement point along the railroad, some units in the north can actually go 3, just to showcase the advantage that the north had in railroad capacity compared to the south. So there's a lot of different things that you can add to the game. You can add them all. You can just pick a few, depending, as long as you agree with the opponent on which one you want to play with. I've played the game many times with full set of rules, but I usually play by myself. So I rarely play with someone, so it's easy to do. So what I would like to do with this particular game, not play the full game on video, because it'd probably get a little boring. You would just see me move counters, throw dice, and flip the units, and I mean that can be a little boring after a while. But what I would do is probably play a few rounds in 1861 just to show you how the game works, and then every year just do a sort of a update video on what's happening in 1862, 1863, maybe play a couple of rounds here and there just to show you the what the cracks units and veteran units can do once they're added, because there's really there's none of them at the start of the game, and keep going until a victory point is achieved in one way or another. And I was thinking it might be fun to play this maybe as much as I can by history. And what I mean by that is, first of all, as the North, try to see if I can come down the Mississippi River like the original plan for the North was, and kind of divide the South in two. As you can see, most of it is on the eastern seaboard, because this is where most of the war took place. There's really not much on the left side here, because Trans-Mississippi, there was a few things, but it wasn't as important as what was happening here. So that's why the game doesn't really have much on this side of the map here. It's really concentrated on the east coast. And so I would think of coming down, trying to make my way down here, Mississippi, and captured Vicksburg, which was the big capture zone. And if possible, keep units in Washington if I get a good roll to plan an invasion of from the sea, and a naval invasion, capture New Orleans, and try to go up the river and join up with the armies coming down this way. The next part would be to play again with the North from Ohio down to Kentucky and Tennessee, and try to make my way down into the deep South, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and maybe try to recreate what William Sherman did in the famous March to the Sea, to really kind of devastated the southern part of the Confederacy, and then obviously move up north to join back with the main battle theater, which was, of course, over here, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, a little bit, because the South did invade Pennsylvania in 1863. This is where the two biggest army were located: the Army of the Potomac for the Union, and the Army of Northern Virginia for the Confederacy. And this is where most of the biggest battle of the war took place: Gettysburg, Sharpsburg, Fredericksburg, Antietam Creek, the two Bull Run battles. I mean, this is where, I mean, not to say that there weren't any big battles taking place somewhere else, but the bulk of what was happening was in this territory, and both sides knew it. The goal was to cut off Washington or capture Richmond for the North. So the objective for both of them, like if we can capture the capitals or destroy the biggest armies, demoralize one side or the other, we can win the war. So that would be my plan, basically, try to play this as close to history as what happened during the war. I think it's going to be fun way to look at it. Obviously, things might change because, you know, depending on the roll of the dice, things might not go exactly the way I would like them to go. You know, South might be lucky, get a few knockouts and push back the North, and then you have to kind of look back at things. But we'll try to keep it as closely as possible to that. For the South, I think I'm just going to play this defensively. I'm not going to... I know that the South did some attacks, try to provide some invasions to the North, try to force it back. But you really don't have a lot of resources. So kind of the best way to do it is just to use your movement point once you've placed your unit in a position where you can defend yourself in a certain key area like Nashville, Island number 10, you know, Fort Donaldson. Just entrench your units instead of trying to move him and attack, and just kind of let the... I'll try to see if I can just get the North attack the Confederacy and stay on the defensive with the South, and just try to promote as many units as I can to veteran and crack status to really kind of upset the balance that the North will definitely end up with more units rather quickly compared to what I can get with the South. So that should be a little bit of fun. Just probably make I know there's 4 years of war, so maybe 3 or 4 videos depending on how it goes on and how much points I can get from one side or the other. We might get it to 1865 soon, but just an idea to show how we play these games, how they're played, and what kind of tactics you can use. You can just follow what the original commanders do, or did, sorry, back in those days, or you can try to come up with your own little strategies just to see if you could have done things differently, quicker, maybe, who knows, sometime. So it's see how it goes, and see how much fun we can get with that. So hope you're gonna join me for these. Like I said, I'll try to keep them not too long, just an update every time to show you what's happening, explain to you what I did. And the first video will be just a quick playthrough of a couple of months, so that you can see how it goes and how the battles are fought. So hopefully you'll join me if you enjoyed this, and you'll keep watching. Leave a comment if you've ever played this game, if you know this game, or if you know anything about the Civil War. I'm not an historian. I didn't go to school learning history. I went into a completely type of different field, but I've always enjoyed history. And my favorite, I don't like to say favorite because obviously it's a war, so it sounds a little bit bad, but the historical subject I really enjoy the most is definitely the American Civil War. I've been fascinated by it since I was a kid. I've read hundreds of books on it, watched hundreds of documentaries, and I never really got tired of it. I really find this particular conflict and what happened before and what happened after very fascinating. So, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I do know a little bit about it, and hopefully you'll be able to get to understand what happened during that war, why it was fought, and why the United States became the country that they are now, because of this particular event that took place in the mid 1800s. So hopefully you'll join me with that. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please do so you can keep track of the videos and enjoy them with me. And so until next time, stay safe, everyone.